morning.
Good morning.
It is a privilege to be here. One of the most valuable things that people can give one another is their time. Almost 100% of all violent crime can be stopped by a few simple and preventable acts that no one is talking about. Can you imagine a city with no violence or unnecessary human suffering? A place where boys and girls can walk to school without the fear of being bullied or abducted. A place where women can leave a public place like a store and walk to their car in a dark parking lot and not fear for themselves. For most of you, this may sound impossible, but I'll be sharing how we will create peace with biblical standards that are backed by science. My desire this morning is that everyone will not only leave this room with more hope for our future, but have practical knowledge and actively multiply the impact for our community and the kingdom of heaven. My name is Andrey Ivanov, and I'm the co-founder of an organization called FlashLove. In 1990, my family fled religious persecution from the former Soviet Union to the United States. I was born in Kiev, Ukraine, with 6 of my siblings, and I'm heartbroken to hear of the tragic reality there today. The American people have given my family a chance to live in peace and enjoy freedom, to grow, have a family one day, and give back to people who open their arms to millions of families like ours. I am one of 13 siblings and in a family of 5 girls and 8 boys, to amazing parents by the name of Victor and Anna. My siblings and I were raised in a loving home with great morals, values that were instilled from our very birth. We were sheltered from the noise of the world, growing up without a television or video games. So we spent our time playing outside, building forts, and challenging all neighborhood kids to a game of football or cops and robbers. I'm not sure why. But as time went on, my environment began impacting me in ways I later regretted. We grew up and gained access to media, movies, and culture, which began forming my young adult years. It put mounting pressure on me to succeed, to make my father proud, and take hold of that American dream. My ambitions for status grew by drowning out my values and even sense of direction. I became increasingly tired living a party life filled with noise and anxiety. I felt like a fake, a hypocrite, asking myself questions like, why do I claim to believe in a Jesus that I don't actually follow? In the fall of 2013, I finally hit a mental wall. I knew that I'd been running from my calling. I knew that I was made for more, living from one distraction to another. I fell on my knees and prayed for forgiveness and direction. One evening, my brothers and friends gathered together to discuss the disturbing trend growing on social media. A trend across cities where groups of youth beat up unsuspecting citizens in the street. The challenge was called the knockout game, which consisted of youth bashing people blindly in the back of the head and running away. We were outraged at the vile behavior and looked for solutions. We thought of ways we could engage our youth across our city and do good instead. We wanted to bring light into senseless darkness, provide leadership where there was none, and take responsibility by setting an example. So FlashLove began. On the 30th of October in 2013, we made a plan to spontaneously serve seniors by cleaning their yards and gutters that were inundated by leaves and branches. We went from church to church, inviting people to join our effort and the youth responded in numbers. 58 people showed up with rakes, shovels, gloves, and smiles, ready to serve their neighbors. From month to month, event to event, we invited people, made friends, and served our community. We've seen the shift in culture that love and family can do for those who are hungry and without a purpose. We've seen countless events and thousands of relationships made over the last 9 years, from yard cleanups, moving help, and food deliveries for single moms and elders. We removed graffiti, cleaned neighborhoods, picked up trash along highways, and every holiday season, we partnered with our generous business community and to bring gifts, Christmas trees to low-income families with children. We've spanned far and wide, reaching our neighbors from all backgrounds and walks of life. Most recently, we've reached out to help fire victims by removing debris and burned trees from the forest fires. The generosity of our community members helped us bring joy into homes and hearts of those we served and those who came to serve with us. We've discovered the simplicity of love without boundaries. We funded our own events, took risks, and invited crowds to experience the joy of serving. Our events were reduced to fuel, tools, and a boombox for music. For those of you on the bus rides delivering turkeys and food on Thanksgiving would know what I'm talking about. I've seen what selfless hearts of complete strangers can do for one another, but unfortunately, also the destruction and trauma from others. I wanted to know what caused it, and how could I reach the unreachable, so I continued my journey. I'm going to share about the root cause of evil and much of the unnecessary suffering that follows. We have a rising youth suicide rate, crime, incarceration, and a housing crisis. These are obviously gigantic topics and often leave us overwhelmed, but there's a source which creates these statistics. But I will not stay in a place of discussing more problems without leading us towards solutions. And not just talk about solutions, but display examples of our vitality leading to healing and redemption. Within our grasp, we have the ability to solve the youth crisis. We have the ability to end homelessness. Yes. We have the ability to end poverty. And we have the ability to end violent crime. What if most of the crime was not committed by a random choice or human condition, but rather knowingly and voluntarily ignored for profit? What if crime was actually linked to a specific preventable act? Some may call it mental illness, absent parenting, or addictions, while others may simply describe it as a human sin nature that lives in all of us. What if most of the crime was not committed? Although I do not dismiss our selfish nature, I want to lead us in our attention for a moment elsewhere. The Department of Defense conducted hundreds of studies specifically focusing on aberrant male behavior. They wanted to understand what sets the conditions leading to violence and wars. Upon completion of these studies, billions of dollars were spent in the forms of grants to fund academic institutions for research and publish vital information for all of us to access. There is no better place to look than into our prison system. It seems to be a common place or solution where society throws away people deemed unfit or unsafe for the public. The obvious fact is that most of them were male, while the surprising element was discovered through a high-resolution MRI. The brain scans revealed that 95% of the prisoners has some degree of fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, also known as FOS. Fetal alcohol syndrome is caused by the mother drinking during gestation. The frightening thing is that there is no safe amount of alcohol consumption during the development of a child. The question is not if there is damage, but what gets damaged. An even more troubling part is that many women aren't aware of their pregnancy for 3 to 4 weeks until gestation begins. As I read dozens of scientific research papers, by the way, that is a brain of a healthy 6-week-old baby and one that had his brain pickled with alcohol. As I read dozens of scientific research papers wanting to understand the scope of this overwhelming problem, a thought began to dawn on me. How can we be doing this to our children? These prisoners were born like you and I, but unlike you and I. They were born into this complex world without the power of choice. A few years ago, a beautiful little girl was born at the OHSU hospital. Upon her arrival, the medical staff observed that she was born without eyesight. Without clear answers to why, they began searching to pinpoint the problem. An MRI scan was conducted, and an expert was brought in to investigate the uncommon birth defect. The scans displayed no sign of any abuse or mistreatment, so the mother's financial records were summoned. After reviewing the purchase history, the investigator matched up the timeline within 3 to 4 days of the eyesight development stage. He noticed one transaction that gave him the answer. The mother later confessed that she had a stressful day and stopped by the bar on the way home from work. She wasn't feeling well that particular evening and decided that she wanted to take off the edge. 3 martinis were purchased that evening on her credit card, according to the record, and she had no idea that she was pregnant. According to an article from Mayo Clinic, signs and symptoms of fetal alcohol syndrome may include any mix of physical defects, intellectual or cognitive disabilities, and problems functioning and coping with daily life. Fetal alcohol represents a range of effects that can happen to a person who was exposed to alcohol before birth. These conditions can affect each person in different ways and can range from mild to severe according to the CDC. Some may have low body weight, poor coordination, hyperactive behavior, difficulty with attention, poor memory, difficulty in school, especially math, learning disabilities, speech disabilities, intellectual disability or low IQ, poor reasoning and judgment skills, sleep and sucking problems as a baby, vision and hearing problems, problems with the heart, kidney, and bones, shorter than an average height, and a smaller head size. What if it was as simple as caring for young mothers through education, housing, and proper nutrition? What if we approach this issue with resources towards prevention and care instead of the costly and reactional punitive system? Healthy mothers give birth to healthy babies with the power of choice. Life is complex enough, and alcohol consumption during gestation programs the baby to become addicted. Addictions to drugs or alcohol create a legacy of destruction and poverty for generations if the cycles are not broken. The sad thing is that so many are born without an ability or an environment to even have a chance in life. The estimate shows that 2 to 5% of our society has fetal alcohol syndrome. This sets the condition to feed 40,000 new bodies into the prison system annually. The rise in mental health, illness is directly linked to alcohol consumption during the child's development in utero. Alcohol advertising has become more effectively marketed to our children through their phones, but very little to no funding is attributed towards education of the harmful effects. This is hands down the greatest atrocity we could stop in one generation through prevention by educating and caring for young mothers. We know that children who grow up with absent fathers can suffer lasting damage. They are more likely to end up in poverty, drop out of school, become addicted to drugs, have a child out of wedlock, or end up in prison. 93% of the incarcerated people in the US are men who come from a home without a father and have some degree of fetal alcohol, according to the Bureau of Prisons. While the young mothers with fetal alcohol become trapped and dependent on the state welfare system. This is a multi-generational issue that causes youth to lose the power to make good choices. Youth with fetal alcohol are 19 times more likely to be incarcerated or dependent on the taxpayers than youth who are without. That is 19 to 1. An estimated of 5.1% of all persons in the United States will be confined to a state or federal prison system during their lifetime, according to Bureau of Justice statistics. It is estimated that fetal alcohol and folic acid deficiency is linked to 97% of all violent crime. And that number would be higher if states actually tested for it. The United States spends nearly $300 billion annually on law enforcement, litigation, and incarceration. It takes 39 million taxpayers annually to carry that cost. That is 18 citizens for every one incarcerated. That's not including lost wages, financial struggles inflicted on families and community members. This doesn't factor in endless trauma on the children being raised without fathers. All violent crime and poverty is backlash for failing to care for our women and children. Ignoring young women forces us to run a prison system. Our constitutional rights continue being infringed upon through policies like gun control to punish all law-abiding citizens for the neglect of mothers. Wouldn't it make more sense to provide preventative care for them instead of dealing with a predictable backlash? Look at the many examples of school shootings. Do you think that that is an anomaly? I guarantee if we conducted brain scans, they would all be products of fetal alcohol. So if we want to protect our children with our lives, then let's stop the atrocity from being committed in the womb and arm the teachers until we stop producing fetal alcohol babies who have no ability for empathy. A man in underwear was discovered with an assault hammer at the Pelosi residence recently. The lawmakers are already scrambling to pass legislation to increase funding for their security. Even animals know not to leave their young without the parents protecting them. Then why do we? How many more school shootings do we need? If we're discussing the root cause of 97% of violent crime, then let's bring up another element of female care during gestation. Nutrition is a critical aspect of the child's development. The less evident part is the effect of folic acid deficiency 30 days before fertilization of the egg. In other words, a lack of proper nutrition for ovulating girls, and we're basically raising a future criminal as a scientific fact. And this is among many other developmental conditions in the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making and empathy. Men are not exempt from their participation because sperm is affected 90 days after handling certain chemicals like WD-40 and Roundup. Fathers who drink regularly before the conception are associated with greater chances of birth defects like congenital heart disease, limb anomalies, clefts, and digestive tract anomalies, according to healthline.com. What I'm talking about here is gene and chromosome mutilation, according to an article from medlineplus.gov. Folic acid can reduce birth defects of the brain and spinal cord by more than 70%. These birth defects are called neural tube defects when the spinal cord fails to wrap or close properly. The most common neural tube defect is spina bifida that occurs when part of the baby's spinal cord remains outside the body. The baby may have paralyzed legs and later may develop bladder and bowel control problems. And the most serious neural tube defect is anencephaly, where the baby is born without part of its skull and brain and eventually dies. All women of reproductive age should be getting 400 milligrams of folic acid. I never thought I'd be talking on this subject, by the way. But I want to save this nation. Because this nation is my people. This nation is my family. Because half of the U.S. pregnancies are unplanned and major birth defects of the baby's brain or spine occur before most women know they are pregnant. For those of you who are still not convinced, I'll share another troubling study conducted by a Stanford law professor, John J. Donahue, and University of Chicago economist, Stephen D. Levitt. They ignited a debate when they released a study on the relationships between abortion and crime. Their findings suggest that abortions have prevented the births of many would-be criminals. The absence of these people, according to their research, is behind at least half of the dramatic crime rates between 1991 and 1997. They broke their findings into three categories: timing, policies, and regions. The abrupt drop in crime coincided with the coming of age of young people born after the 1973 Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision legalizing abortion. Also, in the states where abortion became legal before 1973, the drop started sooner. The reduction in crime has occurred both in cities that have waged war on crime, like crack cocaine, and in cities relatively untouched by crack. I'm getting a cough now, so I can't even talk. Similarly, crime has fallen both in cities that have expanded their police forces and changed their policing techniques, and in cities that have not. I was recently asked if I'm suggesting that we should continue having abortions by sharing the study. My response was, wouldn't it make more sense to just take responsibility and care for the women instead? There was a successful project conducted in Alakanuk, Alaska, with a native community, where young mothers educated about the effects of alcohol and proper nutrition. They then paid to stay sober if they accepted the provided housing and care. Their children grew up to not just become functional members in society, but many went on to pursue their college education. Here's another example of a mother struggling among us, and I get these messages sent to me on a weekly basis. Hey Andrey, this is Diane. A friend of mine told me about the housing project you're working on. I'm wondering about the application process and how I may apply. I'm a mother of 9 children and was divorced 5 years ago. I have a minimal income at present, and God has provided me a mobile home at a trailer park to live in. But it gets very cold during the winters, and it's expensive to keep it heated. My space rent continues going up by $30 every year, and there is no cap. So being in a small home like what you have would be such a dream if only I could afford one. The costly rent for apartments is not possible for me with the income I make as a tutor and music teacher. I am on the edge of barely having enough to pay for the current housing expense, which is $700 a month for my space rent. 98% of our nation's children are born by mothers who are between the ages of 15 and 36 and happen to be the poorest people in America. Do the math. In James 1:27 it says, "Pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their trouble and to keep oneself unspotted from the world." What if the solution was already before us and all we had to do was work together? What if housing could create a safe path to safe communities and a culture of prevention through education and planting gardens for growing healthy food? I'm excited to share our solution to fit the scale of this problem. We are preparing a workforce and a family that will build homes for themselves and help others across the nation. 20 months ago, we launched a training course called the Spartan Challenge. Our mission is to train young men to understand their unique identity and pursue a Christ-like ethic and accept responsibilities. This develops their character, equips them with skills, values, and knowledge, and prepares them for a successful future. Our vision is to see a nation thrive with hope and a future. Good men and women who raise strong families, excel in business, philanthropy, government, education, media, arts, and entertainment. We see a nation of warriors and ambassadors for our sovereignty, health, and freedom. The process begins by enrolling youth into a 10-week course which trains them in self-discipline, mental toughness, and many critical skills. This course conditions are set for trainees to break through personal obstacles and rise up to their potential. The training sets a foundation of ethics, morals, and values, then provides a conducive leadership environment post-graduation. Each trainee learns skills ranging from communication, survival, and self-defense. Thanks to our veterans over there to my left. They learn about cooking, servicing their vehicles, and providing first aid in emergencies. These skills will equip them for a lifetime ahead. Joining the Spartan Challenge is not a decision that one should make lightly. It should not be mistaken for a school club or summer youth camp, because becoming a warrior is accepting a culture of duty to serve others, continuous self-improvement, and a lifetime responsibility around them. I'd like to have the instructors please stand. Jensen, Leah, if you could just say a few words, please.
You want me to get loud?
Yes.
All right. So, with the Spartan Challenge, we ended up inevitably taking, well, it used to be just boys, now it is men and women. We take them and build them into men and women of God.
Hey.
The reason why we do this for this next generation is because, honestly, our generation is screwed. This next generation, if we can build them up to be men and women of God, they can actually go out and change the world.
That's right.
That's right. Lucifer is God in the public school system. Lucifer is God on Capitol Hill. Well, as for me and my house, their God deals before ours. It is on us to raise children up in the way they should go.
Yeah.
We take these young men and these young women, we give them the skills necessary that they need. No matter what course they choose in life, we will outfit them with the proper skills and the courage and the mental fortitude to find that success no matter what it is they choose to do. I am honored that I helped Andrey develop this program, and I am leaving it in good hands, passing off the reins as second in command to Wilkerson, as I am now on my way to Tennessee to branch out and duplicate this program across the country. Thank you for your support. Happy birthday, Marines!
Hoorah.
and every class that we started, usually about the second or third week after they don't look terrorized, one or two of them will come up to me or another instructor. They're dealing with suicide, drugs, abuse, you name it. Many of them lack purpose. Part of our goal is to instill some purpose in them, a God and Christ-focused life where they can branch out, help the community, boost their own careers, start their own business. There's many pieces to the puzzle of life. We're teaching them where they fit in and where they should. Thank you.
I am thankful for these 4 out of our 11 instructors. We have 2 other female instructors and a few more men. Without these incredible men and women, this effort wouldn't be possible. We have graduated over 134 youth in the last 18 months, and we have only begun. We are equipping a functional backbone for America. After graduation, many continue their volunteer service. Their tasks include training junior leaders, restoring neighborhoods and cities. Leaders may apply and receive internship opportunities which lead to employment or mentorship for personal and professional development. The graduates additionally receive 200 credit hours towards their timber frame cabin kit that they choose to go through upon completion of their training, Spartan Challenge training. Upon completion of their training, they can assemble and actually live in their own home. I will explain a little bit further as we go. We'll play a quick video of an interview.
I am the mom of Hunter Akey. My name is Sarah, and a proud aunt of Patrick. Those are my boys. And we have been a part of Flash Love Spartan Challenge for almost a year. I've known Andrey for a few years, going community events, Flash Love. Heard about Spartan Challenge last year at a Youth for Liberty event where he presented. When Andrey presented that night when we left, Hunter said, "Don't even think about it, I'm not going to do it." What was funny was Andrey sort of singled me out and told me in front of everyone, he was like, "Yes, Sarah, I'm going to take your son." And it was a couple weeks later at a different event, Hunter had run into Andrey and a graduate from 003. And I found out after he told someone else, he actually hugged Ray Reynolds and told him that he had decided that he could do it. So Hunter decided that he was going to. Hunter faced a lot of challenges going through the Spartan Challenge. First, there was a social element of it that he wasn't used to, from being homeschooled and things. Another element was obviously physical. Hunter was a total gamer, and that's what he preferred to do. He preferred to game and watch YouTube, and that was his activity outside of school. Seeing him become less self-focused and more about the team was where he really overcame socially. And then physically, I think that kind of came along with it because he had a team of brothers that was relying on him, and he didn't want to give up on himself because that meant letting them down. And Hunter's physical transformation has been incredible. He couldn't do a sit-up or a push-up when he started, and now I don't even know how many he's doing. Hunter is a completely different kid than he was when he started. Sometimes I look at him and I'm like, wow, you went from being like a little boy into a young man. He is more respectful to everyone. He definitely puts like community first. He jumps at any opportunity that he gets to go serve. He cares more about his physical health than he ever has. He has brothers now, family now that he didn't have before. It's incredible, and all of that has like translated back to home. Everybody that sees Hunter or has been around Hunter for any amount of time can see it, but the biggest like testament to his change are people that maybe don't see him very often, and they come around and they're like, what happened? He's so different, he's bright, he's shining, and yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think the biggest thing would just be to love them through. They're going to struggle. And I think as moms, like our instinct is to protect them. Mine was definitely to protect Hunter. And when he said that he wanted to quit, it was a lot of, are you sure? But internally I'm thinking, yes, please, because like I don't want to see you struggle like this. But being supportive of him and just letting him, Hunter, like you have to do what's right. What do you feel like God's putting on your heart to do? And just watch them and love them and be present because they need you, even when you feel like they don't. Change is coming, and it's beautiful. I have goosebumps. It has been remarkable to see. I've gotten to see not just Hunter transform, right? But I've gotten to see other young men like completely change as they've gone through this program. And I'm getting to witness what they're doing out in the community and the love, the relationships that they're building. Nothing can stop what God has ordained to happen, right? And it's going to be beautiful, and I'm just, everybody needs to be involved. There are ways that people can partner with Flash Love, even if you don't have a youth that can be, go through the Spartan Challenge. Like, get involved in Flash Love. I'm involved in Flash Love. Like, we can all do this together. But it's starting, the fire is starting right here with Spartan Challenge and Flash Love.
That first week was rough. Getting screamed at, and especially where I started. It was encouraging though, after that first week. I mean, it hurt. Never worked out before that, or did any PT. For me, the biggest part was probably the mental battle. Again, it's just rough. But they tell you as the weeks go on, it gets less physical and more, learning stuff, and that's true. I think my favorite part was week 4 or 5 when we did our survival stuff and we were learning how to build fires. It was rough at first, but it got better as the weeks went by. I never really had friends outside or beforehand. People outside of Spartans, you can't really build that connection. I think it's that initial suffering together. You can't make better friends than after you've all seen yourselves or seen each other at your worst and been pushed to the limits. You don't have that connection outside of Spartans. It's tough, but it's something that it's definitely worth putting your kids through. The effect for me didn't stop when boot camp ended. It continued, during the service events every week. I mean, I recall one story from that, or a couple stories where we walked up to houses and, people, they're snappy initially because they don't, know what you're there for, and they think that you're just another, insurance salesman or whatever. But once you are able to open up to them, I mean, they trust you. They let their guard down a little bit. So I think my message, again, would be to, go through it if you can, and just love on people. Don't let people get to you. Don't let your friends pressure you into stuff that you don't want to do. And don't be lazy either. It's good to have stuff as a pastime, but don't let it become your life. I mean, build yourself before anything else.
Thank you, Hunter and Sarah. My message to young men today: you will be misunderstood, disrespected, and mocked by society. There is a plague in our culture that despises your role as a man. Attacks will come not only from the poisonous feminist movement of hate towards you, but many of those well-intentioned critics who ignorantly misunderstand your unique purpose in life. You're not made to be a girlfriend, a soft people pleaser. You're not built to be someone's rag, a slave, or a drone. You're designed to be bold, alert, and dangerous. You must gain wisdom and discipline if you ever want to achieve your greatest potential and create a legacy worth remembering. You can only have authority if you take responsibility to help others by building great things or fixing problems. You're designed to be a defender, to see the enemy conspiring to do harm or enslave the innocent and confront it. There are cannibals in our society who use commercial means to prostitute people for personal gain. They use devious plans and reasons to shackle us with unethical financial burdens. They will gouge your financial ability to provide for yourself and your family. They will take you away from those you love, as you will be forced to provide more with less time available. Less time with your family will make those you love lose touch. Less time with your family will make you lose touch with your children and wives. Their love will grow cold with your overworked and exhausted lack of attention. You will become increasingly frustrated because you'll eat pain and share it with no one. In the best case scenario, you'll just bury yourself with more work and useless distractions. At worst, you'll end up depressed and addicted to lust in a bottle. You'll be written off as a failure with selfish ambitions. While you're toiling away to provide, you'll become like the thousands of good men with broken hearts, lives, and families who live silently in the shadows or commit suicide. You will eventually die with no voice or legacy you were created to carry. There is a solution, my brother. It doesn't have to end this way. You have a pen in your hand to write down your own story, but you must listen to my heart and my next words carefully. Choose to seek wise counsel. Separate yourself from the digital and physical world. Don't run from correction, and write down your goals for your future. Your available time to develop will become scarce with responsibilities that consume you. Use these precious years of your journey to develop your mind, body, and character. Prioritize what's important and recite it daily. Guard your heart from greed and power. Those two will consume your mind, will consume and poison your mind, then take away your peace and purpose. Surround yourself with people who want to see you succeed. Push away from those who flatter and exploit you. And finally, you must know that you were created for greatness. Accept the challenge you've been invited to grow in. Forge your own legacy by leaving your fingerprints on this globe. I was inspired to write this message to the sons of this generation who are concerned for their future. I wanted to bring them perspective and hope if they choose to receive it. Life is challenging as it is, and even more so for boys who are growing up without fathers. My words to them have always been, you're not alone. My brothers and I will walk with you. We will guide you through trials towards victory until you get on your feet and move on your own. In the last portion of our approach towards this community, towards this incredible solution, is our housing incubator project. This is going to be hands down one of the greatest things that we as a society can do to provide care for our women. The Housing Incubator Project gives people the means to learn new skills, make lasting friendships, on top of proudly building a personal home or residual income. Each individual may apply to live in the sustainable micro-farming community upon completion of their training. This gives people the ability to experience freedom without anxiety of daily survival in the out-of-control inflation and housing market. The process begins with our teams working with forest fire victims by cleaning up their properties and receiving donated logs. We have developed partnerships with native tribes in the region, assisting them with our housing solution. We are prepared to build hundreds of homes and provide training for their youth and women. In exchange through the partnership, they will donate 50% of all burnt timber that we will repurpose from the scorched federal lands. I want to thank a gentleman by the name of Jim Foster, who is a native and has connected us to the native tribes in Oregon, and talk about a heart, a selfless heart, an ambassador that is linking us, with an incredible community. Last year, Oregon lost 653,000 acres of forest or of acres to fires. That's almost $2 billion in timber that we could build 13,060,000 of our cabins from. We have all the equipment, we're preparing a workforce, and we are ready to go. The logs are... By the way, that is enough logs to rebuild the entire state of California, meaning housing units for people in California. California has 14.25 million housing units. We're just under that. To give you an example, that's one state and 1 year worth of forest fires. The logs are processed into lumber, creating beautiful building material for homes, and our engineering team has designed a beautiful luxury timber frame cabin module with sizes that fit many family needs. We have a unique design that is safe from storms, earthquakes, falling trees, and even fires. Our focus was to build a home that was safe for seniors, moms, and nursing children. Many of our communities will be located within an hour of the major metropolitan areas and have unique cultures and market focus. Some will be geared towards agriculture and quiet retirement ranches, while others will be more vibrant, focused on youth, education, innovation, high-tech, and manufacturing. This gives young women the ability to be in a safe environment and raise healthy babies, many of which could only dream of owning a home. We have also developed 19 different business models to equip families to generate their own income and care for themselves. Our job was to develop the logistics, provide resources and education, and now we're sharing this vision, equipping the willing and letting them fill in the details. There's a lot of available land and resources, so there's no reason to compete with outrageous rent and real estate prices. Imagine how different our world would be if people were free and focused on being creative instead of daily survival just to pay bills? What would our communities look like if we grouped together problem solvers and gave them time to focus on health, relationships, and innovation instead of filling their time with fear and survival? We would grow our own food, exchange goods and services, and have experiences that so few got to enjoy. We are prepared to train up a generation of boys to lead with proper husbandry. We are prepared to house and care for new mothers. We are prepared to care for our vets and eradicate homelessness. And we are prepared to equip every foster child with skills and ability to build their own homes. We all live in a 24-hour time frame, and true wealth is not how much money you make, but how much time and resources you get to keep at the end of each valuable day. The relentless dedication to this work over the last decade has caused much hardship to my family. Many years with no pay, clarity, or end in sight, followed with lonely nights with hard work and even marital misunderstandings. I've been kicked out of my home for weeks at a time, sleeping in my car like the homeless, but the outcome has been worth it, and the joy that I get to experience from it today. We are building a future for people to live with no lack so they can properly care for their children. This will give them more ability to develop skills, seek better employment, or start businesses to gain independence. We believe that we are on the forefront of breaking generational poverty by creating healthy environments where families will thrive and raise healthy children. So partner with us if your heart is compelled. We have worked out the logistics, and we are prepared to launch this endeavor across our region and soon our nation. We are rebuilding the multi-generational family. We are rebuilding the community, and we are rebuilding our nation. Will you consider and stand with us to share this vision with others? Will you consider helping us educate youth? Will you invest with us and provide bridge loans for larger production facility, more equipment, and land acquisition for micro-farming communities? And I wanted to end with this. If you don't want to be criticized, then be normal. If you can't face opposition, then say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. It takes courage to be different. It takes courage to fight for the voiceless. And it takes courage to speak truth in the face of your fears, even when your voice is shaking. Thank you. Thank you.